Welcome back to my conversation with Wayne Brown, CEO of Skills for Executives. I'm Eric Harkins, host of Rule Number 3, the podcast committed to an asshole-free workplace. Wayne, great conversation. Hopefully our listeners caught episode 1. In case they didn't, you'll want to go back and listen. Wayne shared a lot of learnings from his 45 years of several different leadership positions in several different countries and a real global perspective that we usually don't get on the podcast. So thank you for sharing that. I want to start with kind of a fun question. We were talking and kind of towards the end of the episode, as you were talking about, how you grew up, where you grew up, you talked about kind of being into cars. So I wasn't planning on asking you this, but I kind of am a car guy myself. So what was your first car and what's been your favorite car that you've ever owned?
Okay, my very first car, and it was a Cortina. It was
Okay.
a 1969, I want to say 1969 white, the old style square Cortina.
Okay.
Ford Cortina. Yeah. My
And
favorite car,
yeah.
still a Ford. So now that you've asked me that question, I didn't realize I was a Ford guy, but probably my favorite car that I had and that I spent a lot of money on doing up was a Ford Monaro.
Okay.
So the old Fords, yeah, I love the early
Yeah.
Monaro version,
Awesome.
sleek.
Yeah. Well, we talked a lot about, lessons learned for you throughout your career. Again, Wayne is the CEO of an organization, Skills for Executives. It's the number 4. You also started an awesome podcast, the ET Project with Wayne Brown. You've had some really cool guests on. But you recently, and you referenced it in episode 1, you just finished a 3-day challenge. Tell us a little bit about what that was, some of the learnings that you got out of it, and what goes into a 3-day challenge with your coaching style.
Yeah, look, so as part of what we do underneath Skills for Executives, we have a couple of divisions, and one of those really hones in on the coaching. So I have a division called Coaching for Companies.
Okay.
And the ET project offers the podcast. We do a live. You've been a guest on my live
Yep.
show as well.
Yeah.
Very early on. And then we also offer a quarterly challenge. So we have the ET project challenge.
Okay.
And I do 4 different durations. So in January, we did a 5-day challenge. This April, we did a 3-day challenge. Next one is a 2-day challenge. And then end of the year, we do a 4-day challenge. So just to give some variety, This one was all about storytelling, because it ties in very nicely with one of my areas of focus around communication.
Yeah.
And so what we speak about in this challenge is we typically introduce a case study. And this case study was around a fictitious name, but a real life coaching scenario that I had a couple of years ago.
Okay.
So we used the name Maria Rhodes. She was a CEO of a unicorn startup company. And the challenge she was faced with was that her industry had just been disrupted by one of the competitors releasing a new product.
Yeah.
And the comparison today would be ChatGPT. So what the challenge was about is Maria was confronted by the fact that her team is fatigued, they're feeling stretched and stressed because they've been working with so many change initiatives for the last 6 months. Now all of a sudden they have this major challenge and she needs to be able to marshal her team and get them all centered and focused and engaged on confronting and coming up with a counter initiative. So that's where we start, that premise. And then in the challenge itself, we break into 3 days. In this case, we introduce, we call 3 secrets, but essentially it's talking about how to introduce storytelling as a leader as part of your communication. And we use basis of change initiative to give them something to work on as a project. But it's really about introducing storytelling into your communication, become more effective as
Yeah.
a leader through. And that's what we introduce over the 3 days.
Yeah. And I was going to ask about that. You talk about, and we don't have to get into what each of them are unless you want to, but, kind of 3 secrets for influencing change outcomes through storytelling. I love how much you talk about the importance and the value and the effect that storytelling can have. And, I don't know if you want to expand on that a little bit, but I think it's so true. And I think one of the things you work with leaders on is, it can be a really effective way if you're not comfortable in a certain setting of still landing a really important message, but in a way that makes you feel a little more comfortable. Is that fair?
Oh, for sure. Absolutely. And what's really interesting is if we look at neuroscience research at the moment, it's showing us a lot of the reasons why storytelling is so powerful. Our brain is wired to accept stories far more than they are to receive facts and figures and data. And so storytelling is something to grow up with. My wife works at Disney as an example.
Okay.
So, Disney is one of the models, the Disney storytelling method is one of the models we introduce in the challenge. Not that we use that, just as a means of looking at how they structure their story. And so, it's no secret. Somebody talks to you and they tell you a story about something that's happened. It's much easier for you to engage with and associate to that story, right, through your own experiences.
Sure.
And one of the secrets that we talk about in the challenge is that you have to understand your audience. So when you're scripting your story, you're actually telling the story to people and you're engaging with them on things that they're interested in, they're comfortable talking with.
Sure.
Let's say I'm an engineer delivering a speech to a group of engineers. Then the way I structure my story is it's going to be very process oriented. It's going to have a real structure that's visible. I might talk about schematics. I might talk about a whole bunch of different terminology that would resonate with the audience. And then I'll throw some questions out to them. So it's a simple concept when you learn the process. What I found is the majority of leaders struggle with it. And that's why we run it as a challenge, and then we follow it up with it.
Awesome. So shifting gears just a little bit, one of my favorite quotes that I saw from you, and I really can't wait to hear you kind of expand on this. If decision shapes destiny, then curiosity shapes growth. I love that message, but tell us what that means to you.
Well, one of my mentors, I think I mentioned in episode 1 of our discussion, I've always had mentors. And one of the mentors I had the honor of meeting actually back in the 90s was Tony Robbins. And so I've always leveraged some of the stuff that he's the same age. He's 1 month older than I am. So we sort of grew up in the same era. We followed right back when cassettes were being released. He had a whole range of cassettes. Many listeners won't know what I'm talking about, but so he has a statement about decision shaping destiny. Paraphrase. That resonated with me. So I've sort of been very cognizant of that much of my career. We talk about it with our coaching and with our programs. I learned during my career, however, was yes, they do. But as we touched on in the first discussion, we don't have all the answers. Therefore, you have to be open and seek out and be curious about whatever it is you're interested in, so that you broaden your knowledge. Now, whether that's through other people, whether it's through your own research, whether it's through your partner, whomever it's through.
Yeah.
And that's where the curiosity comes in. So one of my mantras is that I'm both curious listener, curious questioner.
Yeah.
The purpose of that is that I'm really interested in growing.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I do the podcast, Eric, is because I get to meet fantastic people like you who have their own experiences.
Yeah.
And
Right.
they bring those and we get to talk about them, and that helps me grow.
Yeah.
So through my curiosity, through listening, through questioning, I get to grow. And so,
Yeah.
yes, decisions shape your destiny.
Right.
Those decisions are based on your experiences and your knowledge.
Yeah.
And so, therefore, being a curious person enables you to grow and make more grounded decisions.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, and for those who maybe didn't listen to episode 1, another plug for your book, released in 2021, Solo Executives, 5 Transformational Strategies for Leaders Overcoming Isolation, Anxiety, and Fatigue in Career Transition. And in the book, you talk about a choice map, or you have a choice map in your book. Tell the listeners kind of what a choice map is and what it means to you.
Yeah, great question, by the way. So the choice map, again, I steal everybody's information.
Yep.
I consider myself a knowledge broker. So
Right.
when I hear something really interesting, I dive in deeper.
Yep.
So there's a lady called Dr. Marilee Adams. She has a book called Change Your Question, Change Your Life.
Mm.
And in that book, she has a thing called the choice map. And the concept is not new, but the way she's framed it is so beautiful. I use it as well in a lot of the things that I talk about. And essentially what the choice map is doing is it's saying that even though we may not always understand and realize, every single situation we encounter, we make a choice on how we're going to react.
Yep.
And we can respond, in her words, in a learner mindset, or we can respond in our judger mindset. Now, for the majority of us, the judger mindset is our default response mode, and we end up running off down this negative spiral, looking at things, making negative judgments. If we can reverse that, if we can pause long enough for making our choice, making our decision, to really consider what is it that I can get out of this? How can I be curious about it? How can I ask different questions that will give me more information around this situation? And that enables me to become the learner and have that growth learner mindset. And that's what the choice really emphasizes, is that we have these two choices. If you find yourself down that judger path, of course, it's not too late. You can still get back on the growth path by asking different. So that's essentially what the choice map is talking about.
Yeah, well, and that made me think of something I wanted to make sure we talked about. And then I'm going to transition to the top 10 learnings from your 45 years of leadership, which I think will be a great way to kind of close out episode 2. But one of my favorite quotes that I use a lot is, and it's from George Eliot, "It's never too late to be what you might have been." And you talk about, regardless of the person you are at the moment, if you desire to change, you can, and become the person that you wish to be. I think they're very similar, if not the same message. I really like the way you position it. And I'm going to read it again, and then I just want to have you talk about where that came from. But regardless of the person you are at the moment, if you desire to change, you can, and become the person that you wish to be. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that dovetails in a lot of ways off this choice mindset. Right?
Yep.
There's lots of studies that prove that that's possible, by the way. Not always easy. Always the caveat, but not easy.
Yeah.
And it takes deliberate intention to make that transition.
Sure.
It comes in that statement, it comes from my own experience, because different stages throughout my career, I found myself in situations where I didn't realize I shouldn't be and I didn't want to be.
Yeah.
And it's possible to transition away from it.
Yeah.
Now, to give it some context, a lot of people in today's business world, back to the book, are facing isolation.
Yeah.
Now, in many cases, they put themselves in that position.
Yeah.
They've got that S on the first. They have all
Right.
the answers, big stuff,
Right.
but they shut themselves off from everybody else. Now,
Yeah.
through the coaching process that we go through, we help them to see that.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the other
Yeah.
two areas that we talk about in the book are anxiety and burnout. Similar premise, and I'm no way, shape, or form qualified to talk from a medical perspective or
Sure.
psychological perspective, but you know, I've met many people that suffer with anxiety,
Yeah.
and anxiety today seems to be a growing issue in
Absolutely.
the workforce.
Yeah.
And one of the very strong reasons behind that book is to try and help people in those three scenarios to
Yeah.
realize that it is possible to get out of this place that you're at.
Yeah.
And one of the best ways is to really not try and do it by yourself. That's probably a long-winded answer
Yeah.
to your
Yeah.
question.
No,
Correctly, but it's very painful.
yeah, it's great. And, I do think, and you can read some of the stories, there's the um, people that didn't start their company until they were in their mid 60s and they were a billionaire by the time they were 80 or whatever it might be. And I just think it's important. Hey, you can change the environment that you're in. There's a saying out there, which is, along the same lines, you can't change the people around you, but you can change the people around you. It's like, you can change the situation if you really want to. So with that, I think as we close out another great conversation, you were gracious enough to share some of your learnings and top 10 learnings or lessons learned from your incredible career. People can find it on your LinkedIn page. And I just want to go through them. We don't have to spend a lot of time on each one, but maybe, a sentence or two on what it really means to you. And these are your top 10 learnings from your 45 years of leadership. And number 10 is decisions shape your destiny. And we talked a little bit about it earlier, but anything you want to expand on that?
Well, it's the reality.
Yeah.
So it's a basis. That's why I started there. Because,
Yeah.
If you look at it where you are today, it's because of the decisions that you've made.
Yeah. Yep.
Once you realize that, then you start to become more conscious of future decisions that you're going to make.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. Number 9, plan for full immersion.
And this is one that I feel gets underutilized a lot. So what I find is people like ideas, but once you give them the green light to go ahead and do it, yeah, okay,
Right.
we might touch on it. So if you make a decision, then go for it.
Right.
Don't hold back, right? You've decided to do something, then do it.
Right.
Get fully immersed.
Right.
That's
I love it. Number 8, curiosity does not kill the cat.
So this is what we talked about a moment ago. So people need to become curious is the bottom line.
Yeah.
So much complexity in our business world today, in the world around us today.
Yeah.
You don't know everything. You can't know everything. You have to ask questions. You have to listen. You have to become more curious.
Right.
Bottom.
Yep. Great. Number 7, I feel like David Letterman reading the top 10 list here. Number 7, don't fear failure. Fear not failing. Ooh, I love that.
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Look, I wish I could claim that statement as well. I mean, I've probably paraphrased it. But,
That's all right.
So, as you said earlier, right? You don't want to. Sorry, not you, the person I was speaking to. You don't want to get to the end of your life and be regretful about things that you could have done, should have done,
Yeah.
wished you had done. The reality is that we're not perfect, and we don't have the answers to everything. And it's only once we try that we realize, okay, maybe that's not the right way, that's not the right approach. And it's only a failure when you give it that title. It's really a learning opportunity. So it's just words, but really it's just saying, give things a try. You're not always going to be successful, but if you don't try, you definitely won't be successful.
Yeah. Well, and boy, it just spoke to me, and you just kind of said it as part of your conversation, but it only becomes failure when you give it that title. I think that's an incredible, should be number 11, but yeah, so I love that. So, all right, moving on, number 6, excuse me, grit and its cousin, resilience.
Yeah. All right. So kudos to Angela Duckworth and her research and studies and all the people that she works with. But, grit in her definition is passion and perseverance.
Yeah.
And she has some great case studies that she's done and stories. So, one of the things I found is that people are always looking for the easy road. And all of these tips, by the way, stack on each other.
Sure.
So people that are looking for the easy solutions, the easy way out, tend to give up after the previous point. So they try something, it fails, and that's not going to end up. I'm out.
Yep.
So developing that perseverance, developing your passion around what you're doing and why you're doing it, your purpose, if you like, is so critical for leaders to be able to go through the challenges. You're going to face challenges all the way through our career, and you have to be resilient. You have to have that perseverance. You have to be able to bounce forward when things don't work. That's what this is really doing.
Yeah. No, great. Number 5, change your questions, change your life.
Yeah. So this comes back to our choice map and discussion around Dr. Marilee Adams' choice map. But essentially, when we are curious, sometimes the questions we ask are rhetorical because we believe we already have the answers.
Right.
So I'm really challenging people to consider the questions they're asking. Why are you asking that question? Is it just you want information? Or are you really curious to learn something that's going to help you form a broader perspective? And so therefore, by changing the questions, changing how you think about the questions and asking them is going to give you so much more insight.
Yeah. Yep. Great. Number 4, habits, good and bad, are in control.
Well, I think this is a topic that's very broadly spoken about at the moment, so probably don't need to go too much into it. But depending on the task that you may be working on at any given time in your role, in your private life, depending on the complexity of that task, anywhere between 45 to 95, maybe even higher, of functionality of what you're doing in your life is on autopilot. And the habits that we form and neural pathways strengthen with repeated practice, good or bad. So it's really just something to become more conscious, become more deliberate and intentional about what you want to be doing, and give yourself a chance to change or to take back control from the autopilot. Imagine what you could do if you just took back 5% of what you do autonomously at the moment. Right? Imagine the change it's making.
Yeah, that's great. So we have 2 left. Number 2, become a lifelong learner. I think we've talked about that, but hey, we're always still learning. And you touched on that in both episode 1 and earlier in this conversation, but become a lifelong learner. Anything else to add to that?
No, look, it's not even optional anymore. It's mandatory in today's world. You have to learn. I'm 63. I'm studying neuroscience of all topics. So you think that's
Yeah.
not fun.
Right, right. Yeah, well, and
It is.
hopefully people can find a way to embrace that journey and not be threatened or frustrated by it. And like you said, as soon as you accept and understand that you're always learning, helps you look at it from a different perspective. But the last number one, lesson learned from your 45 years of leadership that you talk about, so true, especially for anyone who owns a business or a founder or somebody who runs a division or runs a business. Constantly seek ways to create value. And that doesn't have to be for business owners. I think that's a pretty good life takeaway as well. So
that one came directly from Tony Robbins.
Yeah.
He said to me at one time when I met him, he said, Wayne, everyone is born somewhat equal. What differentiates us as we go through our life is the value we create. And for some reason that stuck with me. It's something that I try and bring in the business, of course, is the degree of value. So, in today's world, there's so much competition in the market that you're forever trying to find ways of differentiating. And what I found is you are your best, what would I call it? Your best promotion. And if you can find ways to differentiate yourself from your competitors, from the others, but even more so, if you have a genuine desire to bring support, bring assistance to help others grow, then you're going to do this more naturally. You're going to be authentic in the way that you look to generate value. And that's really what I was trying to drive to the people, to the team when I left these. I left these teams with my team as a parting gesture after my career in the corporate. And that's the message I was trying to give them. You have to be authentic and genuine.
Yeah.
But in doing so, you're always got to be cognizant of the value that you bring.
Yeah.
And, hugely successful.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing your lessons learned both with your team and with everyone. And again, you can check that out on Wayne's LinkedIn, one of his posts. But Wayne Brown, thank you so much for joining me for a couple of great conversations around leadership and what it takes to create those cultures people want to be a part of. Wayne Brown is a best-selling author. He's a speaker. He's an award-winning executive coach. In fact, he was the CEO Today Magazine's 2022 Executive Coach of the Year. And for people who maybe didn't listen to episode 1, what's the best way for people to find you? Your business and coaching practice is Skills for Executives, the number 4. Wayne Brown. LinkedIn, I think you said, is probably the best way for people to find you, and we'll make sure to tag you as well. So,
and just to confuse everybody, probably the website to go to, because I have several different businesses, but the one I'm most active on at the moment is the coachingforcompanies.com. Our websites. If you go there, you're going to find a heap of free material. This is one of my value creations, one of my ways of giving back. There's a lot of material.
Great. So coaching for companies, the number 4, coachingforcompanies.com. Connect with Wayne on LinkedIn. It was an honor to have you on. I don't know that we'll ever have somebody who has more global experience than you. As a reminder, I think I said you have worked on 4 continents with people from over 100 countries, and you might win the award for most global person I've ever talked to. But I've learned a lot from you in our conversations. I know our listeners will as well. And if you're looking for a coach with 45 years of experience, reach out to Wayne and his team at Skills for Executives. So Wayne, thank you again for being a guest on the podcast. Really appreciate your time.
Eric, it's been a pleasure. I love the work you're doing as well. And we've connected multiple times, and I hope it's not the last. So really enjoy.
Thank you.
Working.
Definitely won't be. And enjoy our conversations every time we have one. So thank you again. And I guess I can say have a good day since you're in China and your day's just getting started. So
thank you. Enjoy your evening.
Yeah.
Have a red wine.
I will. Well, since you told me to, I guess I will. So thank you. No, Wayne, thanks a lot. And look forward to talking to you again in the future, maybe on another episode of Rule Number 3.